The mop bucket made a wet sound as Ben Carter pushed it across the marble floor. He had been working in the palace for 3 months now, and the echo of his footsteps still felt strange in such a massive building. Back on Earth, he had taught second graders in a small classroom with crayon drawings on the walls. Now he cleaned floors for alien royalty on a planet so far from home that Earth was just a tiny dot in the night sky. A door slammed open down the hallway. Ben looked up from his mopping just in time to see a Draconese woman running toward him. Her scales were dark blue and her robes were smoking. Literally smoking. Small wisps of gray smoke curled up from the edges of her fancy clothing. "I quit," she screamed as she rushed past Ben. "Those children are demons. Absolute demons." Ben watched her disappear around the corner. He counted in his head. That made 47. 47 nannies in 1 year. The palace staff talked about it constantly in the break rooms. The Queen's twins had broken every record for impossible behavior. Some of the older workers whispered that the children were cursed. Others said they had inherited too much of their dead father's war dragon blood. Ben went back to mopping. It was not his problem. He was just the janitor. "You there, human?" Ben turned around. A tall Draconese man in official-looking armor was walking toward him. This was Captain Rendell, the head of the palace household. Ben had learned to recognize the important people even though they rarely noticed him. "Yes, sir," Ben said. "Did you see Mistress Halera leave?" the captain asked. "The lady with the smoking robe?" Ben said, "Yes, sir. She went that way." Captain Rendell made a grinding sound with his teeth. It was how Draconese people showed frustration. "That is the last one. We have no more options left in this entire star system." Ben nodded politely and started mopping again. He had learned that the best way to be invisible was to keep working. "The council wants to send the children away," Captain Rendell said. He was not really talking to Ben. He was talking to himself. A military academy on the Outer Rim. They are only 6 years old. Ben's hand tightened on the mop handle. 6 years old. The same age as his daughter had been before the transport accident. Before he lost everything and ran away to space where the memories could not follow him, a crashing sound came from behind the large doors nearby. The nursery doors. Then a child's voice yelled something in the Draconese language. Ben did not speak much of it yet, but he knew anger when he heard it. "I should check on them," Captain Rendell said with a heavy sigh. But he did not move toward the doors. Nobody wanted to go in there. Another crash. Then the sound of something breaking. Expensive something, probably. Ben surprised himself by speaking. "What are their names?" Captain Rendell looked at him with confusion. "Excuse me, the children. What are their names?" "Princess Kira and Prince Torin," the captain said slowly, as if wondering why a human janitor would care. "Why do you ask?" Ben shrieked. "Just curious." The captain shook his head and walked away, muttering about impossible situations in council meetings. Ben went back to his mopping, working his way closer to the nursery doors. He was not being nosy. This was his assigned hallway. He had every reason to be here that a small flame shot out from under the nursery door. It was bright orange and only lasted a second, but it left a black mark on the marble floor. Ben stared at the burn mark. He had seen the palace children before, walking with their fancy tutors and bodyguards. But he had never been this close to the royal twins. Another flame came under the door. Then another. Someone inside was having a very bad day. Ben put down his mop. He should walk away. This was not his job. He was maintenance staff, not childcare. But his feet carried him to the nursery doors anyway. He knocked gently. The flames stopped. Everything went quiet. "Go away," a young voice shouted. It was speaking common tongue, the basic language everyone in the galaxy learned. The voice was high-pitched and angry. "We do not need another stupid nanny." "I'm not a nanny," Ben called through the door. "I'm a janitor. You made some burn marks on the hallway floor. I need to clean them up." Silence. "I'm coming in now," Ben said. He opened the door slowly, giving them time to throw something at him if they wanted to. The nursery looked like a war zone. Toys were scattered everywhere. Books were torn. Furniture was knocked over. In the middle of the chaos sat 2 small Draconese children. Their scales were deep red with gold edges, the royal colors. They looked exactly alike, except one had slightly longer horns. Both of them were staring at Ben with wide yellow eyes. "You are human," the one with longer horns said. "This must be Kira." "Yes," Ben said. He walked calmly to where a small fire was still burning on a cushion. He patted it out with his work glove, then picked up the damaged cushion. "You're not scared?" the other twin asked. "Torn, probably." "Of what?" Ben asked. He started gathering the torn books, checking to see if any could be repaired. "Of us," Kira said. She made a small flame appear in her hand to prove the point. "We are dangerous." Ben looked at the flame. It was about the size of a candlelight. "That is a very controlled flame," he said. "You have good technique." Kira's mouth fell open. She let the flame go out. Nobody had ever complimented her fire before. They only yelled at her to stop. Ben continued cleaning up the room, working around the children. They watched him with confused expressions. He did not lecture them. He did not ask what happened. He just cleaned. "Why are you not yelling at us?" Torrin asked quietly. Ben paused. He looked at the little boy who was trying so hard to seem tough, but had tears in his eyes. "Because you look tired," he said simply. "Yelling at tired people does not help anything." He finished gathering the broken items and walked to the door. Both twins were still staring at him, like he was some kind of puzzle they could not solve. "I will be in the hallway if you need anything," Ben said. "Try not to burn anything important." He closed the door gently behind him and went back to his mop bucket. Through the door, he heard whispers. The children were talking to each other in rapid Draconis. He smiled a little and started mopping up the burn marks. Maybe it was not his problem. But then again, maybe someone should start treating those kids like people instead of problems. His mop made quiet squeaking sounds on the marble as he worked. Behind the nursery doors, everything stayed quiet. No more crashes. No more flames. That IT was a small thing. But sometimes small things mattered most. 3 days had passed since Ben cleaned the nursery. He tried not to think about the two small faces that had watched him with such confusion. He had a job to do, and it did not include getting involved with royal problems. Every morning, he mopped floors. Every afternoon, he cleaned windows. Every evening, he went back to his tiny apartment in the staff quarters and tried not to dream about the family he had lost. But the palace had other plans. "The human janitor will see the queen now," a guard announced, appearing suddenly beside Ben as he polished a brass railing. Ben nearly dropped his polishing cloth. "I'm sorry, what?" "Queen Solara requests your presence in the throne room." Immediately. This could not be good. Humans did not get summoned by dragon queens unless something had gone very wrong. Ben followed the guard through corridors he had only cleaned but never walked through as a guest. His work boots felt too loud on the expensive floors. The throne room was enormous. Queen Solara sat on a throne made of black stone that seemed to absorb light. She was the most beautiful and terrifying being Ben had ever seen. Her scales were deep crimson and gold, and her eyes held the weight of someone who had ruled for centuries. Around her stood various advisors and council members, all watching Ben like he was an interesting bug. "You are Ben Carter," the queen said. It was not a question. "Yes, your majesty." Ben bowed the way he had seen other staff members do. "My children spoke to you 3 days ago." Ben's heart sank. He was about to be fired, or worse, deported back to Earth. "Yes, your majesty. I apologize if I overstepped. I was just cleaning, and they have not set anything on fire since that day." The queen interrupted. Ben stopped talking. The advisors were whispering to each other now. "Impossible," one of them said. "The children set fires every day, sometimes every hour." And yet, the queen said, her eyes never leaving Ben, for 3 days, nothing. The maids report that they have been asking questions. About the human who cleans the hallway. About Earth. About you. "I only spoke to them for a few minutes," Ben said honestly. "I did not do anything special. That is exactly why I called you here." The queen leaned forward. She looked exhausted. "In 2 days, a behavioral specialist from the Zentari homeworld will arrive. Dr. Fisk is known throughout the galaxy for correcting difficult children." The way she said correcting made Ben's stomach turn. "He uses strict discipline methods," one advisor said with approval. "The children will learn proper behavior or face consequences." Ben thought about the two small faces in the nursery. the anger that was really fear, the flames that were really cries for help. "May I ask a question, Your Majesty?" The advisors gasped. Apparently, humans were not supposed to ask queens questions. But Queen Solara nodded. "Have you asked them why they are so angry?" The silence in the throne room was heavy. Finally, the queen spoke very quietly. "Their father died 1 year ago. I have been too busy ruling to be the mother they need. I thought professional caregivers would be enough. They are 6 years old and they lost their father," Ben said gently. "No amount of professional training can replace what they really need." "And what is that?" an advisor snapped. "Certainly not the opinions of a human janitor. Someone who stays," Ben said simply. He was probably getting himself fired, but he continued anyway. "Every nanny runs away. Every tutor quits. These children are testing everyone to see who will actually stay when things get hard. And everyone keeps failing the test." Queen Solara was very still. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "I cannot hire you as a nanny," she said. "The council would never approve a human in such a position. And honestly, you have no credentials for childcare." Ben nodded. He had expected this. "However," the queen continued, "I can assign you to clean the royal family wing during daytime hours, when the children are most active." "Your Majesty, this is highly irregular," an advisor began. "Silence," the queen said softly, but with absolute authority. "Children do not perform for janitors. They do not try to impress maintenance staff. Maybe what my children need is someone who sees them when they think nobody important is watching." She looked at Ben with ancient eyes that had seen too much loss. "2 weeks, Ben Carter. You will clean the royal wing. You will observe my children. You will report to me what you see. If Dr. Fisk arrives and you have made no progress, we proceed with his methods. If you have insights to offer, I will listen." "I understand," Ben said. "Do not try to parent them. Do not try to teach them. Just be present." "Can you do that?" Ben thought about all the times he had run away from pain, from memories, from connection. Maybe it was time to stop running. "Yes, Your Majesty. I can do that." The next morning, Ben arrived at the royal wing with his cleaning cart. The nursery doors were closed. He could hear the children inside, arguing about something in their language. He did not knock. He just started mopping the hallway outside their room. After an hour, the door opened a crack. A yellow eye peeked out. Then it closed again. Ben kept mopping. Another hour passed. The door opened wider. Kira stepped out, trying to look casual. "You are here again. I clean this hallway every day now," Ben said, wringing out his mop. "New assignment." "Oh." She watched him work for a moment. "You have burns on your hand." Ben looked at the small scars from where he had patted out her fire 3 days ago. "Yes." "Do they hurt?" "A little. But I have had worse." Torin appeared in the doorway now too. "You did not tell anyone we burned you." "Why would I?" Ben asked. "It was an accident." The twins looked at each other with an entire conversation happening in silence. Finally, Kira spoke. "Our last nanny told everyone we were monsters. She showed her burns to the whole palace staff." Ben put down his mop and looked at both children seriously. "You're not monsters. You're sad kids who miss your father. There's a difference." Kira's eyes filled with tears. She turned and ran back into the nursery. Torin stood there a moment longer, his small hands clenched into fists. "Everyone thinks we are bad," he whispered. "Everyone is wrong," Ben said gently. Torin ran back inside too. The door did not close all the way this time. Through the gap, Ben could see Kira crying on her bed and Torin sitting beside her, patting her shoulder the way children do when they do not know how else to help. Ben went back to mopping. He did not go inside. He did not offer advice. He just stayed in the hallway, close enough to be available, but far enough to give them space. When his shift ended, the nursery door was still open a crack. It felt like progress. By the end of the first week, the twins had become Ben's shadows. Not in an obvious way. They would wander out of the nursery and just happen to be in the same hallway where he was working. They would sit on the stairs and pretend to read books while watching him polish the railings. They never spoke much, but they were always there. Ben treated them the same way he treated the furniture. Present, but not intrusive. He would nod hello and go back to work. Sometimes he would ask simple questions like whether a window looked clean enough or if they thought the left corridor or the right corridor needed mopping first. They started answering him, on the 8th day. Something changed. Ben was dusting the library shelves when he heard a small voice behind him. "What are you doing?" He turned to find Torin standing there with a book in his hands. The title was in Draconi's script, but the pictures showed space battles. "I am dusting. Books get dusty if nobody cleans the shelves." "That seems boring," Torin said. "Sometimes boring work is peaceful," Ben replied. He continued dusting, moving down the shelf. "What are you reading?" Torin held up the book. "It is about my father. He was a great warrior. He led the dragon fleets against the Corvette invasion." Ben looked at the picture Torin was showing him. A massive Draconis in battle armor, breathing fire at enemy ships. "He looks very brave. Everyone says I should be like him." Torin's voice was so quiet Ben almost missed it. "But I do not want to fight. I do not like fighting." Ben stopped dusting. He sat down on the floor, cross-legged, so he was at eye level with the small dragon child. "Did your father like fighting?" Torin thought about this. "I do not know. I was too small to ask him. You know what I think?" Ben said carefully. "I think brave people fight when they have to, not because they want to. Your father probably fought to protect people he loved. That is different from enjoying violence." "Really? Really? On Earth, we had many warriors. The best ones were the people who understood how terrible fighting was. They were strong because they were gentle first and fierce only when needed." Torin sat down across from Ben, the book forgotten in his lap. "Is that why you do not run away when Kira makes fire? Because you are gentle first?" "I do not run because I know Kira is not trying to hurt me. She's trying to see if I will leave like everyone else." "She is scared," Torin said simply. "She gets angry when she is scared. I get quiet when I am scared." Ben nodded. This child understood more than most adults gave him credit for. "What are you scared of, Torin?" The little prince looked at his hands. His claws extended and retracted nervously. "I am scared I will be bad at being a dragon. I am scared the war dragon blood in me will make me hurt people. I am scared I will disappoint Mother." Before Ben could respond, a ball of fire shot past them and hit the far wall. Both of them turned to see Kira standing in the library doorway. Her scales were bright with emotion and small flames flickered around her shoulders. "You are talking about me," she shouted at Torin. "You always do this. You make friends and leave me out." Ben stood up slowly, keeping his movements calm. "Kira, I do not care." She created another flame in her hand. "Everyone likes Torin better. He is quiet and good. I am a bad one. The angry one." "That is not true," Torin said, standing up too. "I was just telling Ben that you get angry when you are scared. I get quiet when I'm scared. We are the same, just different." "We are not the same." Kira's voice cracked. The flame in her hand grew larger. "You do not understand. When I hold a fire in, it hurts. It burns inside me. But when I let it out, everyone gets scared." Ben's heart broke a little. He took a step closer to her, even though the fire in her hand was getting bigger. "Does it really hurt when you hold it in?" Kira stared at him. Nobody had ever asked her that before. "Yes," she whispered. "It feels like swallowing hot rocks." "Then stop holding it in," Ben said gently. Everyone in the palace had been teaching her to suppress her fire, to control it, to hide it away. And here was this human telling her to let it go. Kira's confusion showed on her face. "Not at people," Ben clarified, "and not at things that matter. But you need a safe place to let your fire out. Holding pain inside always makes it worse." "Where?" Kira asked. The flame in her hand was flickering now, responding to her uncertainty. Ben looked around the library. This was not the right place. Then he remembered something from the palace maps. "Does this palace have a training arena? A place where dragon guards practice?" "Yes," Torin said, "but we are not allowed. We are too young. Come on." Ben started walking toward the door. The twins hesitated, then followed him. They wound through corridors until they reached the training grounds. It was an enormous outdoor space with stone walls on all sides. Scorch marks covered every surface from years of dragonfire practice. "This is perfect," Ben said. He gestured to the open space. "Nobody is here right now. Kira, this is your safe place. When you feel the fire hurting inside, You come here and let it out. Burn the walls. They're made for it. Kira looked at the training ground like it was a gift beyond measure. I could just let it go without hurting anyone. Yes, fire is not bad. Fire kept humans alive on Earth for thousands of years. It gives light and warmth and protection. Your fire is part of you. It is not something to be ashamed of. Kira's eyes filled with tears. Then she turned to the training wall and let go. The fire that came out of her was massive and bright and beautiful. It was not the angry little flames she shot at Nanny's. This was pure dragon fire, properly released. She breathed it out for long seconds until her lungs were empty. When she stopped, she was gasping but smiling. It does not hurt anymore. See, Ben said, you just needed the right place for it. Torin walked over and took his sister's hand. Can I come here with you? We need to let fire out. So you are not alone. Kira squeezed his hand. Yes. Ben watched the two of them standing together in the training ground and felt something warm in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or purpose. He had not felt either in a long time. Come on, he said. I still have floors to mop. You two can help if you want. They did want. They followed him back inside, arguing cheerfully about who would carry the soap bucket. For the first time since their father died, the twins sounded like children instead of problems waiting to explode. Queen Solara watched the security footage for the third time. On the screen, her children were laughing. Actually laughing. They were helping the human janitor organize cleaning supplies, debating whether the lemon soap or the lavender soap smelled better. Torin was sniffing both bottles while Kira made exaggerated faces of disgust. This is highly unusual, Your Majesty, Captain Rendell said from beside her. The children have been peaceful for 12 days straight. No fires, no broken furniture, no screaming. I can see that, Solara said softly. On screen, Ben was teaching the twins how to properly fold cleaning cloths. It was such a simple domestic thing. Her children, royal heirs to the Draconi's throne, were learning to fold laundry from a human. And they looked happy. Dr. Fisk arrives tomorrow, the captain reminded her. Should we cancel his appointment? Solara thought about this. The entire council had approved bringing in the Zentari specialist. Canceling now would show weakness, or so her advisors would say. But watching her children smile for the first time in a year made her question everything. Let him come, she decided. But I will speak with Ben Carter first. She found Ben in the hallway outside the royal wing, right where he always was. He was teaching the twins a game from Earth, something with hand movements and rhyming words. They were terrible at it, but having fun anyway. Mr. Carter, may I have a word? Ben immediately stood up and bowed. The twins jumped to their feet too, suddenly formal. Solara's heart ached seeing them switch from playful to proper so quickly. Children, go practice your reading. I need to speak with Ben alone. For a moment, Solara thought Kira might argue. But Torin took his sister's hand and led her back to the nursery. They kept looking back at Ben, though, worried. Am I in trouble, Your Majesty? Ben asked when they were alone. No, the opposite actually. Solara gestured for him to walk with her. They moved through the corridors slowly. I have watched the security recordings. What you have done with my children is remarkable. I have not done anything special. I just treat them like people. That is special, Solara said quietly. Do you know what happens tomorrow? The doctor from Zentar arrives. The twins told me. They are scared. They told you that. Torin did. Kira pretends not to be scared, but she has been making more fire than usual when we go to the training grounds. Solara stopped walking. You take them to the training grounds. Kira needs a safe place to release her fire. The training arena has walls designed for it. I supervise to make sure they stay safe. Ben looked worried now. Should I not have done that? I am sorry if I overstepped. No, Solara said, and she felt tears in her eyes. It was the last time she had cried. No, you did exactly right. I should have thought of that myself. I have been so focused on making them control their fire that I never considered they needed to release it. They walked in silence for a moment. Finally, Solara spoke again. I want to offer you a formal position. Not as a janitor, as a royal tutor. Ben stopped walking. Your Majesty, I'm not qualified. I taught small children on Earth, but I have no credentials with Draconi's culture. The council would never approve. The council can complain all they want, Solara said with a flash of her old fire. I am the queen. My children have had every qualified expert in the galaxy, and all of them failed. You succeeded by simply caring. I cannot replace their father, Ben said gently. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be yourself. To keep doing what you have been doing, but officially, with proper pay and authority. She looked at him seriously. I am asking you to help me save my children from becoming the hard, angry adults that our society expects them to be. Ben was quiet for a long time. Why me? Really? Because you see them. Not the royal title. Not the dragon heritage. Not the expectations. You see two scared children who miss their father. Solara's voice cracked. I've been so busy being the queen that I forgot to be their mother. But you remind me every day what matters most. If I accept, the other noble families will be angry. Humans are barely respected in this part of the galaxy. Let them be angry. My children smile now. That is worth any political consequence. Ben looked back toward the nursery where the twins were probably pretending to read while actually listening at the door. Okay, he said. I will do it. But I have conditions. No one gave Queen's conditions. Solara found herself amused rather than offended. Go on. The twins need time to just be children. No etiquette training for at least 6 months. No formal events unless they want to attend. And Kira gets unlimited access to the training grounds. Agreed. Anything else? They need time with you. Real time, not just formal dinners. Maybe you could take them to the training ground sometimes? Let Kira show your fire? Ask Torin about his books. Solara felt the words hit her like a physical blow. He was right. She had been so afraid of failing as a mother that she had stopped trying. I will do better. You are already doing better by asking for help, Ben said. Nobody can do everything alone. The next day, Dr. Fisk arrived from the Zentari homeworld. He was a tall, thin alien with cold eyes and a briefcase full of behavioral modification tools. The entire council gathered to welcome him. I hear you have problem children, he said to Queen Solara. Do not worry. I will fix them. Actually, Solara said calmly, I have changed my mind. We will not be requiring your services. The council erupted in protests. Dr. Fisk looked insulted, but Solara raised her hand for silence. My children are not broken. They do not need to be fixed. They needed someone who would stay. And we found him. She gestured to where Ben stood with the twins. He was not holding their hands or hovering over them. He was just there, a steady presence. Kira was gripping the edge of his jacket, though, and Torin stood close enough that their shoulders touched. A human, Dr. Fisk said with clear disgust. You are trusting Royal Draconi's children to a human. I am trusting my children to someone who loves them, Solara corrected. Species is irrelevant. The council meeting that followed was loud and angry. Several noble families formally complained, but Solara did not budge. She watched through the window as Ben took the twins to the training grounds. Kira breathed fire at the walls while Torin cheered, and Ben made sure they stayed safe. That evening, Solara joined them. It was awkward at first. She had not spent casual time with her children in over a year. But Ben quietly excused himself to check on something, giving them space. Kira showed her mother the new fire technique she had been practicing. Torin read aloud from his favorite book. They did not talk about their father. Not yet. That wound was still too fresh. But they were together, and they were trying, and that was enough for now. Later, when the children were asleep, Solara found Ben in the hallway. Thank you, she said simply. For what? For reminding me what matters. For staying when everyone else left. For seeing my children as people worth saving. Ben smiled. They were always worth saving, Your Majesty. Someone just needed to convince them of that. Solara went to bed that night and slept peacefully for the first time since her husband died. Down the hall, 2 small dragon children slept without nightmares, knowing that someone would be there in the morning. Someone who would stay. The Festival of Flames happened once every year. It was the most important celebration in Draconi's culture, where young dragons demonstrated their fire control to the whole planet. For royal children, it was not optional. Kira and Torin had to perform in front of thousands of citizens and visiting dignitaries from across the galaxy. Ben could see the fear in their eyes during breakfast 3 days before the festival. Kira pushed her food around her plate without eating. Torin kept looking at his hands like they might betray him. "We're going to fail," Kira said quietly. "Everyone will see that we are not good enough." "You have been practicing for weeks," Ben reminded her. "You have excellent control now." "In the training ground with just you and Torin watching," she said. "Not in front of the whole planet." She had a point. Public performance was different from private practice. Ben thought about his teaching days on Earth, how some students froze during presentations even though they knew the material perfectly. "What if we practice in front of people?" he suggested. "Small groups first, then bigger audiences." Over the next 3 days, they did exactly that. First, Ben invited Captain Rendell to watch, then a few maids, then some of the palace guards. Each time, the crowd got bigger. Each time, the twins got a little more comfortable. By the day of the festival, they were still nervous but not terrified. Ben walked with them to the preparation area behind the main stage. The sounds of the massive crowd filtered through the walls. Thousands of voices, all waiting to see the royal twins who had been hidden away for so long. "I am scared," Torin admitted, holding Ben's hand tightly. "Being scared is okay. It means you care about doing well," Ben said. He knelt down to their level. "Remember, you're not performing to prove anything to anyone. You are just showing people what you have learned. And no matter what happens, I will be proud of you." Kira hugged him suddenly, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "You will be right there watching, right? Where we can see you. Front row. I will not take my eyes off you for a second." A palace official came to escort them to the stage. Ben gave them both one last encouraging nod and went to find his seat. Queen Solara was already there, sitting on an elaborate throne. She looked almost as nervous as her children. She gave Ben a small smile when he sat down near the front. The ceremony began with traditional dragon music, all drums and horns. Then the announcer called for the royal twins. The crowd went silent. Everyone knew the stories about the difficult children who had driven away so many caregivers. Everyone was curious to see if the rumors were true. Kira and Torin walked onto the stage together, holding hands. They looked so small under the bright lights, but they stood straight and proud, the way their mother had taught them. They began their demonstration. Kira created a series of fire rings that floated in the air. Torin wove his flames through the rings in a complex pattern. It was beautiful, perfectly synchronized. The crowd began to murmur with approval. Ben felt pride swelling in his chest. They were doing it. They were amazing. Then everything went wrong. A flash of movement from the side of the stage caught Ben's eye. A figure in palace guard armor was moving too fast, too purposefully. Ben instant crime de danger. He saw the weapon in the figure's hand, saw it aimed toward the stage. Toward him, Ben did not think. He simply moved. Years ago, he had been a teacher who practiced emergency drills. Some part of that training kicked in now. He saw the weapon discharge, saw the bolt of plasma energy coming toward where he sat today, but Kira and Torin were closer. If he dodged, the plasma would pass him and hit the stage. Hit them. Ben threw himself sideways, directly into the path of the bolt. He felt it hit his shoulder with burning agony. The impact spun him around, and he crashed into the seats. His vision went white with pain. Screaming erupted around him. Palace guards were swarming the assassin. Queen Solara was shouting orders. But Ben's eyes were locked on the stage, where two small children stood frozen in horror. "Ben!" Kira screamed. Her fear transformed into rage. Fire exploded from her in a massive wave, instinctive and protective. The flames formed a wall between her brother and the chaos in the audience. Torin grabbed his sister's hand. Instead of panicking, they moved together like they had practiced. Torin's cooler blue flames mixed with Kira's red fire, creating a shield around the stage. It was not part of their demonstration. It was pure defensive instinct. The guards tackled the assassin, but the creature was strong. It was a Krovan, a shapeshifter species known for assassination. It fought with deadly efficiency, trying to get another shot at its target. Ben tried to stand up, but his legs would not work right. His shoulder was bleeding badly. Human blood looked wrong here, too red against the silver floor. He could hear shouting, but it sounded far away. "Stay down." Captain Rindle was suddenly there, pressing something against Ben's wound. Medical team is coming. The twins, Ben managed to say through the pain. Are they safe? They are fine. They are protecting the stage. That firewall they created is keeping everyone back. Rindle sounded amazed. They are using perfect defensive formation. I have never seen children their age with such control under pressure. Ben tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. That is because they are not scared kids anymore. They are brave kids who know what they are capable of. More guards arrived and finally subdued the Krovan assassin. The firewall around the stage lowered slowly. Kira and Torin stood there, still holding hands, their scales bright with adrenaline and protective fury. The moment they saw Ben bleeding on the ground, they jumped off the stage and ran to him. No, no, no. Kira was crying, her hands hovering over his wound like she could fix it with will alone. You are hurt. You are bleeding. It is okay, Ben said, even though it absolutely was not okay. Everything hurt and the world was starting to spin. You two were amazing up there. You jumped in front of the weapon, Torin said, tears streaming down his scaled face. You could have died. Could not let anything happen to you, Ben said. His words were slurring now. You are my kids. He had not meant to say that out loud, but it was true. Somewhere in the past few months, these two dragon children had become his. Not by blood or species, but by choice and love. Queen Solara was there now too, pushing through the crowd. She knelt beside Ben, her own eyes wet with tears. Hold on. The medical team is almost here. Your Majesty, Ben said, forcing the words out. The twins. They were perfect. You should have seen them. So brave. I saw, she whispered. I saw everything. The medical team arrived with equipment and urgent voices. They were saying things about human physiology and blood loss and emergency transport. Ben felt them lifting him onto something. The twins were trying to follow, but someone was holding them back. We love you, Kira shouted over the noise. Please do not leave us. Ben wanted to tell them he loved them too, that they had saved him just as much as he had saved them, that they were the reason he had remembered how to care about living. But the words would not come and the world was going dark. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was two small dragon children, standing together, their scales reflecting the festival lights. They were holding each other up, being brave, even though they were terrified that he had taught them well. Ben woke up 3 days later in a medical bay that smelled like antiseptic and something sweet he could not identify. His shoulder was wrapped in bandages and his whole body ached. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth in the hospital where they had told him his family was gone. Then he heard soft breathing nearby and turned his head. Kira and Torin were asleep on the floor next to his bed. They had curled up together on a pile of blankets, their tails wrapped around each other. Someone had tried to make them comfortable, but they clearly refused to leave. They have been there since you came out of surgery, a quiet voice said. Queen Solara was sitting in a chair in the corner. She looked exhausted but relieved. The medical staff tried to make them go back to their rooms. They set a small fire in protest. Not dangerous, just enough to make their point clear. Ben tried to laugh, but it hurt too much. Sounds like them. How do you feel? Like I got shot by an alien assassin. He looked at his bandaged shoulder. How bad is it? The plasma bolt missed your heart by 3 inches. You will recover fully, but it will take time. Solara stood up and moved closer to his bed. You nearly died protecting my children. Yes. What? Her voice broke on the word. You are human. They are dragon royalty. You barely know them. Why would you sacrifice yourself? Ben looked at the 2 small shapes sleeping on the floor. Because they are mine now. When you love someone, you protect them. It is that simple. Solara made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. The galaxy is calling you a hero. Images of you jumping in front of that weapon have spread across every news network. A human protecting dragon royalty. Some are calling it the most significant act of interspecies loyalty in modern history. I was not thinking about politics. I just saw my kids in danger. I know. That is what makes it matter. Solara wiped her eyes. The assassin was hired by a purist faction. They wanted to eliminate what they called the corrupting human influence on the royal bloodline. They have all been arrested. The evidence trail led to 3 council members. Ben processed this. People wanted me dead because I teach the twins that feelings matter. People fear change. You represent something they do not understand. Humans caring for dragon children. Emotional intelligence being valued over pure strength. It threatens their entire worldview. She smiled grimly. But they failed. And now the entire galaxy has seen what true courage looks like. One of the twins stirred on the floor. Torin opened his eyes and immediately sat up. When he saw Ben was awake, his face transformed with joy. "You are alive." "I am alive," Ben confirmed. Torin scrambled to his feet and gently touched Ben's uninjured hand. "We were so scared. The doctors said humans are fragile. They said you lost a lot of blood." Kira woke up at the sound of her brother's voice. She took one look at Ben and burst into tears. Not angry tears this time. These were pure relief. She climbed carefully onto the bed and buried her face against his good shoulder. "You cannot do that again," she sobbed. "You cannot almost die. You promised you would stay." "I am sorry," Ben said softly, stroking her scale head with his good hand. "I will try to avoid assassins in the future." "It is not funny," she said, but she was almost laughing through her tears. They stayed like that for a while. The twins pressed against him, reassuring themselves he was real and breathing. Queen Solara watched them with an expression Ben could not quite read. Finally, Kira pulled back and looked at him seriously. "We want to do the ritual." "What ritual?" Ben asked. Torin climbed onto the bed too, sitting on Ben's other side. "Flame kinship. It is an old dragon custom. When someone proves they are part of your flight, your family, you can make it official. The law says anyone who would die for the flight is of the flight," Kira added. "You almost died for us. You're a family now. We want to make it official." Ben looked at Solara. "Is that allowed?" "I am human." "No human has ever been adopted into a dragon flight before," Solara admitted. "It will cause political chaos. The traditionalists will be furious." She smiled. "But my children are right. You have earned this honor. If you want it." Ben looked at the 2 small faces watching him with hope and love. These children who had been labeled as problems and monsters, who had been so angry and scared until someone finally stayed, who had become the light in his darkness just as much as he had been the light in theirs. "Yes," he said, "I want it." The flame kinship ceremony was held a week later, when Ben was strong enough to stand. It was a simple ritual older than the current government. Kira and Torin stood on either side of Ben, while Queen Solara spoke the ancient words. Then the twins breathed fire together, letting the flames meet and merge above Ben's head without touching him. It required perfect control and absolute trust. The flames formed a crown of light that lasted only seconds but meant everything. When it faded, Ben was officially part of the royal flight. The first human ever to be considered dragon family. The noble houses complained loudly. Some called it an insult to tradition, but the common people loved it. Humans across the galaxy celebrated. Other species started questioning their own prejudices about who could care for whom. 3 months after the ceremony, Ben was fully healed. He returned to his duties as royal tutor, but now with official authority and respect. The twins thrived under his care. Kira still needed to release fire in the training ground sometimes, but she was learning to recognize her emotions before they became overwhelming. Torin was reading advanced books and writing poetry. Both children were growing into themselves, unique and confident. Other noble families started quietly requesting human caregivers for their own difficult children. Ben helped train them, sharing what he had learned about patience and presence. A whole new field of interspecies childcare began to develop. But the biggest change was in Queen Solara. She spent more time with her children now, balancing her duties with her role as their mother. She learned to play their human games and read their bedtime stories. She took them to the training grounds and praised Kira's fire instead of fearing it. She listened to Torin's poems and told him that gentle strength was still strength. One evening, Ben found Solara sitting in the palace garden, watching the twins play with other dragon children. They were teaching the others a game from Earth, something about hiding and seeking. Their laughter echoed off the stone walls. "Thank you," Solara said as Ben sat beside her. for teaching me to see what mattered most. You always knew, Ben said. You just needed someone to remind you it was okay to prioritize it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play as the sun set over Draconi's prime. A human and a dragon queen, brought together by two small children who needed love more than they needed perfection. Somewhere in the palace, a young woman arrived. She was a refugee from a colony world, traumatized by war, looking for any kind of work. Captain Rendell greeted her and explained that the palace was hiring staff members who were good with children who needed patience. Ben would meet her tomorrow. He would see the same haunted look in her eyes that he once saw in his own mirror. And he would offer her the same thing that had saved him, a chance to heal by helping others heal. The cycle would continue. One person caring for another. One species learning from another. One broken heart finding purpose in protecting other broken hearts. And in the garden, two dragon children who had once been labeled as impossible were laughing without fear, knowing they were loved exactly as they were. That was worth more than any amount of political power or species pride. That was everything.